Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We have the pleasure of talking to successful business owners to learn from them why they built a business, how they built it, what kind of challenge they faced, to learn from them. And I trust that you find this program interesting and educational. Today we're fortunate to have with us a wonderful gentleman who's built a tremendous business, Mr. Wilson Mendez, the president of Commercial Print Solutions. Mr. Mendez, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely an honor for me to be here. Thank you for asking.
Mr. Mendez, what is Commercial Print Solutions?
Commercial Print Solutions is a commercial printing and sign company, and we specialize in branding our customers and helping them with their marketing needs and goals.
What does branding mean?
Branding is your identity, your company, your corporate identity, what you want people to conceive of you, to think of you. It could include colors, it could include shapes, it's basically your logo. When you think of branding, the branding king in the world, you automatically think of McDonald's. So when you think of, the nice little arches there, automatically you think of McDonald's. And that's what our goal is to help our customers get as close to that as possible, and we do that with signs and with printing.
That's how you do it, signs and printing.
Printing
in terms of everything they need for
all their marketing materials. Companies survive on that. Whether it's one of the most basic signs is a business card. It's a little sign that you hand out to customers to let them know, this is who I am, here I am, I want to do business with you, this is my brand, this is my look. And so that's what we help companies do.
And how long have you been in business, Mr. Mendez?
Wow, within 30 days, we're going to celebrate our 29th anniversary. We started in March of 1993. Although I've been doing it a little bit longer than that, that's when we started Commercial Print Solutions.
Wow, been around a while.
A little bit.
You started when you were a teenager, right?
I was 10. No, not quite. I was a little older than that, but yeah, definitely young.
So, tell me about your background. Where are you from? Where were you born?
Okay, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I moved out here when I was young, when I was 6, which is why, unfortunately, I don't sound like a New Yorker, because I think they sound awesome. But yeah. I moved here very young, product unfortunately, of a divorce, and so my mom moved out here to El Paso to follow her brothers who were in the military, and found this beautiful city called El Paso. One of the best things ever happened to us is moving out here. So I moved out here when I was about 6 years old.
And how'd you like it? What was that like? Shock?
It was definitely a shock. You're talking a difference in food, culture. When you're that young and you think of Texas and you're from the East Coast, you're thinking of horse-drawn carriages, no electricity. That's really what I had in my mind. And when I moved out here, and it was just wide open spaces, beautiful mountains. Everywhere I turned, I saw something really pretty and beautiful. And people who have been here in El Paso a long, long time, unfortunately, don't appreciate the beauty that there really is here. You go to a big city, and everywhere you go, it's just another big building. And that gets old real quick. You kind of feel a little claustrophobic. So El Paso was definitely a very good move. Very fortunate to be here.
And your cultural background, your family?
I'm actually Puerto Rican. My dad was born on the island in Puerto Rico. My mom was born in Brooklyn, New York, and she's Puerto Rican. Both her parents are from the island. And obviously I was born in Brooklyn, New York, so they call me a Nueva Rican. And so I have a very Latin background.
So when you come to El Paso, what school did you end up going to right away?
Well, I was young, and so I moved to the west side, and I went to, some of the schools I went to LBJ, I went to Moorhead, I went to Lincoln, and I ultimately graduated as a T-Bird from Coronado back in 1985.
Oh, that's fascinating. So you adapted very quick.
Yeah, El Paso became home. Okay. El Paso became very natural, very good for us. Absolutely.
And so anything outstanding in high school? Were did you have a face in high school? And
well, I was very academic in high school. I did play a little tennis, a little sports, but I was really more into studying. My background with my mom, when we were real young, she wanted to make sure that that we did well in life. And so she made sure that we studied, we did all of our homework. At a very young age, I remember her constantly studying and teaching us. So fortunately, school came very naturally for me and my brothers. We did quite well, we excelled. I was fortunate enough to graduate top 2% of my class. Had some great college opportunities, some scholarships that were available to me. So things were good. Life worked out well for me at a young age.
Brothers and sisters, how many?
I do. I have 2 younger brothers. I am the oldest of 3. My middle brother is approximately 5 years younger than me. And then my youngest brother is actually 15 years younger than I am. So when my mom moved here, she ended up remarrying. And I'd like to say she married the greatest man that ever lived. Next to Jesus, obviously, Jesus is number one, but my stepfather. Okay. We're talking about a man that took in 2 children that he didn't have to. And not only did he take us in as family, but he took the time to discipline us and make sure that we grew up as good kids. So to this day, I really appreciate that.
And what was his name?
His name is Harry Moore.
Harry Moore.
Harry Moore, yeah.
What did you learn from your mother?
Ooh, Mom. Mom was a tough cookie. I'll tell you, I hear stories about Mom when she was younger in New York. You know, back in the day, in the 70s, 60s and 70s in New York, the neighborhoods were tough. And my mom comes from a very large family, 9 brothers and sisters. Oh. And she's pretty close to the oldest. She's not the oldest, 4th in line, but she had very sick parents that died young. And so she took care of the family. And some of the stories I've heard, we'd have to have a whole other show to hear all those stories. But she was very tough, so I knew she was a survivor. And one thing that I really respect about my mom is she protects her family. We often call her the attorney of the family. She's the one that goes, she's right there ready to fight for you. So Mom's a jewel.
What did you learn from your stepfather?
Oh, goodness. I learned what it's like to be a great man.
Really?
Yeah, the love that he showed for us I never felt like he was an outsider. I always felt like he's my dad, he's my father. You know, he disciplined us when we needed discipline. Being a father now, I appreciate that even more. Because I know it's tough and it takes time and it takes energy and it takes effort to discipline your children because you want them to do what's right. You need to steer them in the right way. At the time, I may have thought it was too much discipline, but I look back now and I see who I am now, who I am today. That's a big result of the way he cared for us and disciplined us as his own children. So I just think he was just a very loving man, just a great person.
And you have children?
I do. I have 1 son, married young. I married right out of high school.
Wow.
Married my best friend, which is awesome. I was 18 when I got married, and I was 19 when I had my son. He's 35.
Wow. And so you've been married?
This Thursday, 2 more days, I've been married 36 years.
Fantastic. That
goes by fast.
That's neat. And your wife, she works with you?
Yes, she's actually my human resources manager. She's the vice president of the company. She's the backbone. She's the one that kicked me out of the nest and said, go get it, you can do it. So yeah, she works with us also.
So why did you get into this world of printing?
Well, it's a funny story. I didn't mean to. It really happened by accident. I always aspired to be an attorney. I worked at a young age. I was in high school. I was in junior high. And I was in a beautiful program that the school offered at the time. Back then it was called VOE, Vocational Office Education. I believe now they call it OEA, Office Education Association, something around that. And it was a school work program. And I did well in school. So as a junior and a senior, I only went to high school half day. And then they place you out in the workforce. I was very fortunate to work for an awesome company. I say it's a company, but it's a financial institution. I worked for GECU when I was in 11th grade in high school, and that really taught me a lot. And then I went to work for an expert witness. He was an economist. He was a professor at UTEP, and attorneys hired him as an expert witness to show the value of a case. and I really enjoyed the legal world. I was the guy back then. Many of the youngsters won't know this show, LA Law. Back in the day, I watched every episode. I practiced my I object, Your Honor, and that was my goal. I felt I was going to be a good attorney. I liked the idea of dressing up and going in front of a judge and doing that. And when I got married, I went to work. I got married in Amarillo, Texas, and I worked for a large law firm up there, and I was a legal assistant. Did that for a couple of years. Came back to El Paso, and worked for the same expert witness. A very good friend of mine was a sales manager of, this was back in the late 80s. He was a sales manager of, at the time, one of the largest printing companies in El Paso. It was established in 1955. There's many people are probably familiar with it. It was owned by Henry and Lilith Lyde. It was called Complete Printing. He was a sales manager, and he's like, you have the gift of gab. You know how to talk to people. You know how to look in someone's eye and shake their hand, and I think you'll do very well in sales. Well, I'm a young dad, newlywed. I'm used to that, the money I was making. I had a budget, and just the idea of being in sales really scared me. But he said, you'll do well. You'll do okay. So he convinced me, and I ended up working as a salesperson there at Complete Printing, and haven't looked back. Just grew from there.
So let me ask you, so out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
and you're top 2%,
Mm-hmm.
You went to work.
I did. I had a scholarship. And if my counselors ever see this interview, they'll still go, no, because they really wanted me to take advantage of it. At the time, I was a very religious background. And, my parents, although they knew the value of an education, they felt it was more important to be involved in the religion, which involved helping people understand the Bible, learning the Bible, the prospects for the future. And that's what I was taught to do. And that was the most important thing. Not getting an education, not furthering a career in a system or in a world that would soon no longer be here. That's how I was raised. That's how I was brought up. And so, although I liked the idea of going to school and higher education, I was ready to get after the workforce and pursue that. I was a young married man, and I needed to start earning a living. And so, I just kind of went that route. Believe me, I wish I would have gone to school. I encourage everyone to, but that was just my path at the time.
So was that meeting with Complete Printing, was that accidental?
Yeah, it was. It was a gentleman he was a sales manager, very good friend of mine. He actually was in my church, and so he knew who I was and what some of my characteristics were. And he said, you'll do great in sales. He had a background as a sales manager, and I guess he had an eye for talent, and he saw that. I didn't. Okay. And so that's how I ended up getting out there.
Okay. And so you go to work for Complete Printing and do sales.
Correct.
How did that go?
Well, it was a little scary at first, and but it really went well. I was at Complete Printing for a couple of years, and it just seemed like income kept growing. It kept growing, and I was enjoying what I call the game of being a salesperson. And so another printing company saw, knew of me and knew I was, who I was out in the printing business, as most of us do. We know each other, all our competition and whatnot. And so they actually invited me to come join their company. So I left Complete Printing, and I went to go work for them. Worked with them for a couple of years. And the sales manager at Complete Printing, his name was Dan, he ended up leaving and going to another printing company also. So a couple of years later, we both ended up back at Complete Printing under new ownership. Okay. And now I was the sales manager, and he was my employee. So it's a fun story, but we had a good time. We always worked very well together.
So you were sales manager for some more period of time.
Right, for a few years, for a couple of years, until it took me up until about 1993. And things were well. I was doing very well in the business and had a great future. And that's when a friend of mine, who also owned his own company, Back in the day, he was located in the Cincinnati area. His name was Chris DeVillier, and he owned a company called Copy Express. It was a copy center. This was before the days of Kinko's, and he did a lot of work for UTEP, and he used to do a lot of work for me. And so he told me one day, he said, Wilson, he said, you're making a lot of money for a lot of other people. And he's like, you could do it on your own. He said, I could introduce you to some people. And the thought was there. And every time I'd see him, he just kept planting that seed and just kept watering it a little more and more. And until one day, I guess the time was right. The birds were singing, the bells were ringing, the heavens opened up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. And so that's 1993 in March when I started Commercial Print Solutions.
So you knew the sales side.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess by now you knew the printing side?
Absolutely. Oh, the printing side. Yes. I knew the printing side of it. You know, printing is not super technical. It's something that's been around for hundreds of years. So the technology up until that point really hadn't changed a lot. So I'm not the guy that even knew how to go up to a press and turn it on. I didn't even know where the on switch is. That wasn't my job. There was people for that actually knew the technical side of that. I was the guy that brought the work there. I knew a lot of the ins and outs of it, but I didn't do that side of the work. But so I knew the printing side of it pretty well, but more importantly, I think for where I was heading, I had to know the sales side of it, the relationship side of it, you know, the bringing the work in. That's pretty much the top priority, because you can have all the knowledge in the world, you can have all, you know, everybody in place to do the work, but if you don't have the work, that's the big issue. So the first thing you need to confront is having the work. That's where I excelled. I did well there.
So when you started, you already had a client base?
I did. I had six or 7 years before I started on my own. I had a very decent client base, and I talked to them because they weren't just clients. I built relationships with them, and as a result of those relationships, I felt that I could have the conversation with them and said, you know, shared my dreams and my ideas. And when I approached them and said, this is what I'm considering, you know, I think I can serve you better. I think, you know, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of you now. What do you think if I start my own company? Would you be willing to give me a shot? And I remember this was GECU who told me this. They said, Wilson, you are our printing company. Doesn't matter what the name is, where the invoice comes from, where you go, we go.
Really?
And I was so flattered by that. And that's all I needed to know. That was the check mark that said, yes, you can do this.
Wow. And so what did you do right away? Did you rent a place?
Well, what I ended up doing is at the beginning, I was called a broker. Okay, so I didn't go and buy all kinds of equipment, and I found myself some good vendor partners. And so my friend, who I told you about before, Chris from Copy Express, he introduced me to a gentleman who remained one of my very good partners and friends for 30 years. He actually just retired a couple of months ago, but he and I have been working together since 1993. And so he introduced me to him, and basically I would bring in the work in volumes, and I would get what's considered a volume discount, and I would make a little profit for bringing in that much work and charge a fair price to my customer, and I could really manage that. So that's how I started off. For the first few years, I was actually a broker. And
so you not only had relationship with customers, but you had relationship with other printers, with vendors.
Oh, absolutely. And that's 100% key in the success for really any company. You know, you think about it, a lot of companies will think of their competition as their mortal enemies or as someone to look out. And, you know, to an extent, I get that, and that's true. But a lot of times, if you look at big picture, your competition can be your ally. They can be your partner. You know, there's a lot of work out there. There's plenty of work. So you can work with each other. And if you build those relationships, it makes for a lot better.
So what was the secret for the early success that you?
Boy, that's a good question. It's going to sound very cliche-ish because you hear it a lot, but it's the absolute truth. It's the core. I don't look at my clients as clients or customers, although they are. I look at them as, friends, relationships that I built. And that's the most important part, I think, in anything you sell.
Why is that so important?
Unfortunately, you see a lot of sales that are very transactional. People really don't like being sold to. They don't. They like being or receiving a service that they need. They like to feel that they're being taken care of. I know the cliche, the used car salesman, the guy that comes in and says, hey, I got a deal for you. And right away you get that really weird, ugly energy feeling, and you can't trust them. There's a lot of sales activity that's like that. If you look at your customer as a friend, if you have a friend, let's say your mother, a family member, or a very close friend, a best friend, and they need something, you're going to do whatever you have to do to help them, right? If you view your customers as your friends, it's not going to be about the transaction. It's not going to be about the profit or the money. It's going to be about helping them. And that's always been my attitude. And so that's why I have relationships well over 30 years with the customers I still have. They're my friends.
So did you need capital to start?
At the time, the way I started, I had some, I was doing pretty well financially, and so the little things were fine. I didn't have to go and buy a building or rent a place. I was able to, work with the vendor partners that I had at the time, and as my business built, and I decided to expand, I just socked away some money as I was growing, and I was able to acquire property. I leased a nice place. I was able to lease equipment with good credit. I was able to hire some people, and now I'm a full-blown manufacturer.
So how long did you last as a broker before you started your own team?
I think I really started looking back at the timeline. I think it was about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Before I started, when I actually, got my property, got some equipment, and had a pretty nice size team. I had 12 employees at the time.
Really? Wow. So you had enough business when you got your facility. You already built the business up quite a bit. Did
Absolutely.
you face challenges in those early years?
Oh, absolutely. When you're an entrepreneur and you own a business, the thing that's always in the back of your mind is you want to grow, grow, grow. It's kind of a natural part of owning a business. You don't want to stay stagnant. You really can't stay stagnant. If you're not growing, you're declining. So you want to grow. And so that's something that I learned back in '96. I think I had big dreams, and I think I maybe grew too quick. 12 employees. Now I have issues. Don't really have HR experience. Just a lot of little challenges that when I look back now, fortunately, over time, I've been able to correct those, learn from them, and correct them. But if you don't really think things through and plan accordingly and learn from others, ask questions, those are the things that I didn't do as much as I should have. So looking back now, now that I've been around a long time, and there's young entrepreneurs out there, people that want to start their businesses, I am so open to sitting down with them and letting them know these are some of the growing pains, these are some of the things you got to think about so that you don't make some of the mistakes I made. Now, fortunately, they weren't devastating mistakes. They were just, I call them little bumps in the road, little hiccups, little aggravations. But overall, I don't regret a thing.
So did you see yourself as an entrepreneur early on?
No, not really.
Was the idea to start a business always in you, or you just saw the opportunity?
I'd like to answer that question no, that I never saw myself as someone who would like to have their own business. I always liked the security. I called it security of working for another company and knowing what your wages are and planning and having your budgets based on that. But I realized you don't grow when you're in that situation. You need to challenge yourself a little bit. So I wasn't looking for the opportunity, but the opportunity kept availing itself until I think finally it told me, hey, wake up, it's time to move.
And you weren't afraid of the challenge?
I wasn't. Again, as I alluded to at the beginning, my wife, who's a very strong individual, said, you can do this. She was my biggest cheerleader. She said, let's do this. Let's have some fun with this. And so with her encouragement, it really helped.
What's your wife's name?
Her name's Dolores.
So Dolores put the fire, kept the fire going?
Dolores put commercial print on the map.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's important. And so how important is that to the development of the business, your wife's support?
I think, when you start a business, when you start anything that's challenging or as big as starting a business, it's important to have support. Family members, a spouse, a best friend, maybe a mentor. I highly encourage having a mentor, someone who's been there, done that. Find those people out there. They're there. I'm sure every person you've interviewed, 75 before me, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm sure every single one of those will be happy to sit down with a young entrepreneur or someone who has that dream and say, hey, look, these are some of the things I faced, because we want to see people succeed. We want to see more small businesses.
Have you seen people fail?
I have, unfortunately. I have seen it.
Yeah, very common, huh?
It is. It's sad. But, at the same time, you got to look at those things. In my business, I've had failures. I've had things that I would consider failures. But I have so learned from those things. And it really, you're like, now I know what not to do. If you don't know what not to do, how do you know what to do? So those are opportunities not to look at yourself as a failure, but to look at, hey, I need to do things a little different, or do something else, or maybe follow a passion. So those are opportunities.
So are you following your passion today?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I love what I do. I absolutely do. As I get older, and I am getting older, I've been doing this for 35 years. I'm asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? I love what I do what I love the most about what I do is meeting the fine people that I meet, the relationships that I've built. I go anywhere I go in El Paso now, I feel like I know someone, and it's very heartwarming, and it's nice to be in that position. But yeah, there's other things that I would absolutely love to pursue.
Wow, fantastic! I sure appreciate hearing your story. As we've been talking with Mr. Mendez, we've learned that he's been in his business quite a few years, over 30.
Yeah, 30 going on 30 years with the business, and about 5 years beyond that with other companies that I worked for.
And you do print solutions,
Mm-hmm.
which is all kinds of things, right?
That's correct. Yeah, basically marketing materials, signage, and printed materials is what we specialize in.
But over the years, let's see. So you started in
1993.
93, and you had a base of customers. Then in a few years, you got your own facility,
Mm-hmm.
and leased equipment. Did your product change?
It absolutely changed. It went from very analog and mechanical to pretty much now 100% digital. Things changed. Technology changed quickly, and that's something that, as a business owner, if you're not ready for it, it could swallow you up really quick, and you can be left looking from behind, looking ahead and trying to catch up.
So how do you adjust? How do you meet those challenges?
Well, especially when it comes to technology, it's important that you keep up with what's going on. I like to do a lot of reading. I like to see what's happening, some of the changes going on. I think it's important in your industry that you attend the trade shows, that you go to events, you do the continuing education in your field so you can see where the industry is changing and you can be prepared to make those changes.
That's interesting. So you're in tune with your industry.
Absolutely. You have to be. It's the only way to survive.
When the industry changed and you became more digital, did you have to get different kind of equipment and invest a lot of money?
Well, that's an interesting story because the actual name, the parent company name, our name is Commercial Print and Label Incorporated. And back in the day, labels were a lot more prominent than they are now. And that was very big in the financial institution, forms and labels. And so as a result of that, as a result of changing from analog to the digital age that we're in now, a lot of my customers were able to purchase their own digital equipment to handle a lot of those services that I survived on. And so as a result of that, I had to shift my business and how I was thinking about what I was doing. At the time, that's all I was doing was forms and labels. And so where did the sign company part of it come in? In my mind, I'm thinking customer can't go to a Xerox machine, push a button, and out comes this beautiful sign that they put outside that lights up. Now, of course, you can make some pretty little posters and whatnot on those digital machines, but you can't do vehicle graphics. You can't really do banners. You can't really do oversized things. So I had to think of a way that I can stay within the boundaries of my industry, which is marketing, which is business growth, whether it's with forms or with marketing materials. Another service that I could offer that my customers can't necessarily do themselves in-house. So my uncle, who was in the sign business, I like to call him the Yoda of the sign business. He did it for 45 years. He's been retired for many years. He was in the sign business and he had his own sign company. And so he was the one that actually started working with me to offer that service to my customers until we eventually became partners. And then I eventually took over the entire operation when he retired. So that's how I ended up getting in the sign side of what I do and that marketing side.
And is that a growth area for you?
Absolutely. That is really probably 75 to 80% of what I do now versus the other way around. It was 75, 80% of printed printed materials and labels, and then just a few signs. And now we're majority of what we do is signs, a sign company. So we do a lot of vehicle graphics, we do banners, we do outdoor lighted signs, monuments, pylon signs, and that's become a lot of fun.
Why are signs important?
Oh, well, a business without a sign is a sign of no business. A sign is your introduction as a company. It's the salesperson that works 24/7 for you. You don't have to pay it overtime. A sign is that, hey, this is who I am. So a sign that represents what you do well is something that's inviting. It doesn't reject. If you see a company, this has happened to you, I'm sure. You're traveling to San Antonio on I-10, and it's at night, it's dark, and you have to get gas. On one side of the road, there's a gas station that's not very well lit. The sign looks like it was from 1942. On the other side is a brand new, very well lit gas station, beautiful signage. Who are you going to go to?
Yeah.
Every time. It doesn't matter if they're charging more. A sign is extremely important to a survival of a company.
Well, you came out of the sales experience. That was your forte, and you got into printing because you were working for a printing company and selling for them. Because of your sales strength, could you have gone into another industry, perhaps?
I think so. I think, in a way, doesn't matter what we do. We're all salespeople. We're all selling something. If you're an attorney, like I was aspiring to be, you're trying to sell your case to a judge. You're trying to sell a reputation. If you're working as a barista in Starbucks, you are selling the best cup of coffee. You have to present yourself with a good image. Within a company, you have to sell yourself so that you can move up the ladder. So I think in a way we're all salespeople.
So let me ask you, because sales is important to a business because it brings in the work, but there's also business to run and to build.
Right.
Is that another animal?
Absolutely.
What's that like?
Absolutely. That's still a work in progress. 30 years later, I've learned a lot. But I think what's really helped me, and I learned this at an early age, was to surround myself with the people who are good at what they do and let them do that. I've always built myself around a team. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a great numbers guy. You and I joked about this the other day. People come up and ask me, "Hey, so what's your profit margin?" I don't know, whatever it takes. I have good people that'll let me know what I need to do and where I need to be, so I can concentrate on what I'm good at, what I know how to do, and I think that's important for every business.
But you do know your numbers.
I do. At first, I can honestly say I didn't. You have a product here that you buy. There's raw materials you have to purchase. There's the cost of goods sold, right? And then you have to mark it up, and you have to be at a rate that's reasonable for the customer, that's acceptable by the customer. What's in between there is what your profit is, right? So you have to take away all the little expenses, your rent and all this stuff. I learned that at a very young age. I learned that as time goes on and material costs go up, and especially now we see it really hitting businesses hard. You have to learn to keep up with that, because it'll sneak up on you and it'll bury a business if you don't stay on top of those numbers.
So there's some basics that you really have to know.
Absolutely.
And one of the things about business growth is interesting. I'm thinking about the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur sees a need and says, "Hey, I can solve that problem," and finds the resources, puts the resources together, and delivers the solution to solve the problem. Is that pretty much describe what you did?
100%. That is exactly, and that's always been my thought process when it comes to dealing with my customers. I'd like to consider myself a consultant. A customer has an issue, has a problem. A lot of times customers think they know what they want or think they know what's going to work best. But the reason why I'm able to build the relationship with the customer is because sometimes the customer will say, "This is what I want." And I can say, "Have you ever thought of doing this instead? It'll save you money," even if it means I lose a little profit, because I could have sold them something that they asked for. And this will still solve their problem for them. That is what keeps the longevity with with your friends, with the customers,
so
the relationships.
What's going on in your mind when you do that?
I think of it as a game. I think of it as a customer needs something, and it's my job to play the game of superhero, whatever it is, to take care of that issue, especially when I'm presented with challenges. And oftentimes, customers will present those challenges, whether they're timeline challenges, whether there's something that they want that's going to be very difficult to produce, whether there's budgets that we have to try to stay within. That's what makes this game fun, is doing that.
You had shared with me a challenge at Y2K.
Oh, wow. That was a very fun challenge. As I mentioned earlier, the customer that's been with me the longest, GECU, great financial institution, great people. Back in Y2K, 1999, if those of you that were around then old enough to remember, we weren't sure if when the clock struck midnight at the year 2000, if the computer system was still going to work because of the computer language. I can't explain all of that, but that's all I know. GECU came to me and presented an issue. They said, "Hey, look, we don't know if we're going to have our customers' records in 2000. So they actually gave me books and books and books of everyone's account information, and I had to make copies for every branch. At the time, I believe there was only 6 branches. And I spent the night on a mattress on the floor at my facility with some other employees, copying those records, very secure. We had to be very secure, and they had to trust me, which was an honor. And so the next day I handed them those copies, and fortunately they did not have to use them. But those were the challenges that we had at the time with technology, and we were there to help.
Interesting. So part of knowing the industry is also knowing where the customers are going, and you kind of how do you keep track of that?
I guess it's like what we were talking about earlier. You have to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and that's why it's so important to have the relationship, because the customers will let you know. You know, we don't necessarily know where the trends are with your customer, like the financial institutions, like GECU, for example. I may not necessarily know exactly what's trending there, but when you have a relationship with a customer like that, maybe it's a medical facility, whatever it is, and they know that you're their partner, that you're the one that's going to help them and solve problems for them, they'll work with you, and you can grow together and change together. And I've seen that, and I've experienced that.
So really, your customers are part of your growth.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be here without them.
But I mean, they also open doors for you.
Right.
So one question, I know you've also been involved in things. I've known you for some time, but I met you through BNI, which is a networking group. And,
Correct.
And you're president of the High Noon chapter.
I am.
What has BNI done for you? Or you've been there a while.
I have. I've been with BNI for well over a decade. BNI stands for Business Networking International, and it is an international group where business folks like us, companies, people who are looking to market themselves, can be a part of, and it's a networking referral-based system. It's not a leads group. They're referrals. I know you need their service, I'm going to introduce you to them. And it's been a very important part of my growth as a business. Like I said, I've been with them for probably going on 15 years. I've served in several leadership positions. The relationships that I've built within BNI are invaluable. And we all have to market and our businesses. We have to market ourselves. And BNI is just that avenue where it really helps you, it guides you and directs you, gives you the education on how to do it. And you have a room full of people that are going to help market your company with you.
So in growing your business, you've had to grow as a person. How have you done that?
Wow. Well, I'm sitting here and I'm sharing my experience. I feel I've grown enough in 35 years I've been in this industry to where I can share that. I've been through the pains. I've been through the challenges. I have some really, really great times, and I've had some not so great times. And so as a result of that, it's really made me who I am, and it's given me the courage to know that I can do other things. Like I said at the outset, what do I want to be when I grow up? You know, commercial print solutions is something I'll do until they put me in the ground, because I love it and I love what I do. But it's really helped me to appreciate with the challenges and growth that I've had to where I'm at now. I feel like there's nothing I can't do.
So how important is leadership in business growth?
Oh, leadership is very important. When you build your team around you, they need that. They need the leadership. They want a leader. They want to be told what to do in their part. Otherwise, they get lost. Otherwise, you have unhappy employees. If you don't direct your employees, if you don't direct your team, you're going to have a very unhappy team. They need to know and have the confidence to know that you know what they're doing. Otherwise, they're going to go look for it somewhere else. And that's one of the challenges that a lot of companies face.
So you have a vision for your business?
Absolutely. I do now. As I get into the older part of my years, my son, who is 35 now, he's been with me for about 10 years. He actually runs my production department. My vision is to see him take this to the next level and to be there to hold his hand and help him with that, and to see what challenges he might be facing and to be there to help him with those.
So you reached a point of, is it fair to say, satisfaction? Are you satisfied?
I am, to a degree. You know, the thing is, you got to make sure that you're satisfied and proud of where you are, but not complacent. Because satisfaction can easily turn into, I'm done, I think I'll just coast from here. And that's when things can start going like this. So
you're not getting into the coasting mood?
No. Whoa, we've just begun.
So where's your growth going to go from?
Well, there's different things we're learning. The industry's changing. We're constantly keeping up with it. I know my wife, Dolores, is always at the forefront of education. That is her strong suit. She finds all the latest, greatest, newest things that are coming out, things that she's like, look, hon, let's look into this. This is a fun part of what we do. Look at these new things. If I didn't have her doing that, I might not know half the things that I know now. So there's other avenues, other ways we can expand, other things that we can do, other services we can offer within the boundaries of what we do, marketing and science. There's a lot of fun stuff.
How big is your business now?
Well, I'd like to consider ourselves a medium to large size printing company. I believe at one year we were measured, and I forgot which magazine, and we were considered top 5 sign company in El Paso. There's a lot of very good sign companies here, so for them to put me in the top 5, I think we're doing okay.
And so, in one of the things that I don't see people come to where you're at in your business without having overcome challenges. But I don't know about major challenges, and I mean some challenges you just go through because you have the habit of overcoming challenges. But what's one of the biggest challenges you've had?
I think something I've learned from when I was younger to now, and I see it a lot. Unfortunately, I see it a lot in a lot of other business owners. It kind of, I'm steering you a little more towards my philosophy and how I think. And I think this plays a big part of what I would consider my success. It's my attitude. It's the way I look at things. Back in the day when I first started and things would arise, like we'd have maybe some cash flow issues. That happens. You know, a customer doesn't pay you for whatever reason, and there's thousands of dollars that you really cannot afford to lose. And you can get down really quick and you can start getting real serious, you know, and I'm trying to portray myself as a very serious individual right now. And when you start getting too serious in your business and your face starts looking like this and your body starts scrunching up, you become very introverted, you become very unhappy. The challenges are still there, whether you're acting very serious or whether you look at it like I like to look at things now as a game. You know, you think about it, the gaming industry is way bigger than even the movie industry. It's huge, by tenfold. When you start talking to people, hey, would you like to play a game? Yeah, everybody, their attitude changes. If you start looking at your business as a game, and I know there's people out there who say, hey, wait a minute, being in business, there's no game. You have to be serious. You have to, no, have fun. If you're not having fun and you don't look at it as a game, you think about a football game. There's challenges. You have opponents. You have goals. You know, you have different things in place. Yeah, sometimes you're down by three touchdowns. That's part of it. So if you start looking at things and having challenges, and you look at them like, I wonder what obstacle, what linebacker that challenge is that I have to get around to get to my goal. That's really helped me a lot. Because I've had situations come up not too long ago where, you know, there's been some serious money issue, a customer didn't pay, and I'm talking thousands of dollars, and I had to confront that. In the past, I might have started freaking out, or I might have started, you know, having a bad attitude. Problem's still there. But now with my attitude that, hey, wait a minute, this is just a game, this is part of it, let's play to win. I don't want to be played, I want to play to win. That to me trumps all. That is the success. I think any business person, if they take that and they think about that and they look at things a little differently and have fun, if you're not having fun, stop doing it.
Yeah, but the important thing to me about I like the game analogy. The issue for me is that every game has a set of rules. And because if you're going to play the game, you want to know what it takes to win.
That's right.
And so how do you learn those rules?
Well, you have to identify those rules. Like you think about it. You think about the business game, the entrepreneur game, what are some of the rules? You have to pay taxes. You have to pay employees. You have to have HR in place. You have to have customers. You have to have marketing goals. You have to have strategies. Those are all part of the rules. You can do this. You can't do this. You have to identify those things and okay, these are the rules within the game that I'm playing in. So that's a very big, important part of it. I'm glad you brought that up. So identifying those rules is very important, because if you don't, those rules will catch up to you. I'll give you an example. If you don't know you're supposed to pay your payroll taxes, it's one of the rules. Guess what? That game's going to hit you real hard. You're going to get hit by, the government, by the comptroller. They're going to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to shut you down. You owe us money. So as long as you identify those rules as part of your game, you'll be fine.
Yeah, sales tax.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but it's also, what's interesting about what you're saying is the attitude with which you're playing the game.
Exactly.
And so you've made a decision somewhere along that you were going to enjoy this game.
All right.
Part of the game, if I understand right, is there are going to be some hard knocks.
Absolutely.
But
how fun is the game if there's not going to be a challenge or two? Really and truly, people say, oh, I'd like to win all the time. I'd like to win every game. That can get a little boring. And so if you think about that, when you have the challenge, and I've had them, and I think to myself, or I'll even say it out loud, well, you know what? Now I know what a bad day's like, so I can look forward to a good day.
And
that's part of it.
You have bad days.
Of course. Yeah, of course. We have challenges. We all have our days. Some days are better than others, but that's part of the game.
So what role does profit come into your business?
Well, profit's important for any business to survive. I can tell you with 100% certainty, it's never been my focus. Profit to me is a product of good service. If you don't provide what a customer needs, you're not going to have customers. You're not going to have good or bad profit. You're not going to have any sales. So if I take care of a customer and a customer is happy with what I've done, they see the value in what I do for them, and they're willing to pay for that value, the profit will be there every time.
Wow. So you've seen other businesses, and you've seen other businesses flounder and get stuck. Mm-hmm. You've seen success. What do you say when you see a business that's floundering? What do you see something common?
Well, I think it starts with the leadership, and oftentimes I see business owners and leaders that are just tired of playing the game.
Okay.
And when that happens, that's an energy, a negative energy that just it happens real quick. It's like a cancer, unfortunately. If you don't have a good attitude, and it's going to show. Even if you're having a bad day, and I've had those, I can't let my employees, I can't let my customers, I can't let my vendor partners suffer from my bad attitude as a result of that, because that brings the whole thing down. And that's what starts there. They don't look at those challenges as part of the game that they need to overcome. They start looking at them as overwhelming obstacles that they can't overcome. And then it starts to become a survival thing. How much longer can I do this? What else can I? And that's what starts happening. And that permeates throughout the whole team.
Sure. So where do you get your energy from?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I should bottle it and sell it, because I'm pretty good with the energy thing. I've learned to take care of myself as I get older, get a good amount of sleep. I work out. I think that's really important. Have, good eating habits, meditation. I think it's very important. What's even more important than physically taking care of yourself is your mindfulness, is taking care of what's up here, and making sure you stay in a good place, no matter what that means. Don't burn out. There's always plenty to do. I could work 24 hours a day and come back the next minute and start another 24-hour. You have to give yourself the opportunity to recharge. Otherwise, you're not doing your team any good. You're not doing your customers any good. You're definitely not doing yourself any good. So I think it's important to take care of yourself.
So do you recharge every day?
As much as I can. I really do. I try to. My wife helps me with that, She likes to call me around 5 or 6 o'clock because I'm usually at the office 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I could stay till 7 or 8.
Really?
And she calls me at 5. Hey, honey, it's 5 o'clock. How you doing? Why don't you come home? It's time to wrap it up. So she helps, encourages me, and realizes that I need rest.
Because you'll keep going.
I will, because I love what I do.
Well, Mr. Mendez, I appreciate your story a lot. Your building now, your location is on what address on Missouri?
It's on Missouri. It's on the corner of Piedras and I-10, right next to the McDonald's. It's 2713 East Missouri.
How long you been there?
I've been at this location for 7 years now. Previous location for longer than that, and who knows? We're looking to maybe even expand.
Fantastic. Well, I certainly appreciate your story. I think I've been inspired.
Thank you.
By the attitude that it takes to play the game and win the game, and not be afraid. But the constant revitalization of energy seems to be so important in building your business, and I appreciate you sharing that a lot. I hope our viewers fully enjoyed this story. It's a good story.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming to El Paso as a young child and making El Paso your home.
Absolutely.
It's been good for El Paso, and I trust good for you. And I thank the viewers for watching and enjoying this time with us as Mr. Mendez shares his story. So again, thank you, Mr. Mendez of Commercial Print Solutions. I appreciate your story, and thank you for watching. Have a good day, and stay tuned for more of Hispanic Biz. Have a good day. Thank you.